Tens of millions of people around the world had a massive scare today. A powerful earthquake with a magnitude of 8.8 struck Russia's far eastern Kamchatka Peninsula, triggering tsunami waves of up to 5 meters or 16 feet nearby and sparked evacuation orders as far away as Hawaii and California in the United States and across the Pacific, including in earthquake and tsunami-prone Japan. The Philippines, Indonesia, China, New Zealand, Chile, Colombia, Peru, Mexico, Panama and Taiwan too issued tsunami advisories and warnings. The shallow earthquake, which according to residents lasted at least 3 minutes, damaged buildings and injured several people in the remote Russian region, though no serious injuries or fatalities have been reported. The depth of the earthquake was about 18 kilometers. Video footage shows a team of medics in Russia performing surgery as the tremors shook their equipment and the floor beneath them. Tsunami waves struck parts of Kamchatka, partially flooding the port and a fish processing plant, while also sweeping vessels from their moorings. Drone footage shows the town's entire shoreline was submerged, with taller buildings and some storage facilities surrounded by water. Scientists say it was the most powerful earthquake to hit this region since 1952. In fact, the 8.8 magnitude earthquake was one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded anywhere in the world. Kamchatka and Russia's Far East sit on the Pacific Ring of Fire, a geologically active region that's prone to earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The tsunami in Hawaii in the US triggered waves over 5 feet high before the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center reduced its warning level for the island state. Earlier, coastal residents were told to get to high ground or the 4th floor or above of buildings, and the US Coast Guard ordered ships out of harbors. The main airport in Maui had to be closed, with passengers sheltering in the terminal. Tsunami waves of nearly half a meter were observed as far as California, with smaller ones reaching Canada's province of British Columbia. In Japan, nearly 2 million people were ordered to evacuate as waves hit much of the northern and eastern coasts. Tsunami alarms sounded in coastal towns across Japan's Pacific coast, and evacuation orders were issued for tens of thousands of people. Workers evacuated the stricken Fukushima nuclear plant, where a meltdown following the 2011 tsunami had caused a radioactive disaster. Footage showed scores of people on the northern island of Hokkaido today on the roofs of buildings, sheltering under tents as fishing boats left harbors to avoid any damage from incoming waves. Reports say a 58-year-old woman died when her car fell off a cliff while she was evacuating in central Japan. Authorities say no irregularities have been reported near Japan's nuclear plants. Tsunami waves of 1 to 3 meters can be fatal for people who are swept away. The tsunami warnings in Japan brought back chilling memories of 11th of March 2011, when more than 15,000 people died after a 9-magnitude tremor triggered a massive tsunami that tore through the Fukushima nuclear power plant and caused a radioactive disaster. So what is a tsunami and what triggers it? Let's look at some important facts. The outer layer of the earth is divided into different sections called tectonic plates. These plates move very slowly, perhaps only a few centimeters a year, which is roughly the same rate at which our fingernails grow. As these tectonic plates move against or towards each other, parts of the plates can get stuck and stress builds up over a long period of time. Eventually, this stress becomes too much and the plates jolt or slip back into place. That releases huge amounts of energy that are experienced in an earthquake. If this occurs beneath the ocean, the movement of the plates can displace water in all directions, which can then travel to the coastline as a tsunami. Not all tsunamis look or act the same. A single tsunami can be felt differently, mild on one coast but severe on another. Tsunamis in the deep ocean aren't very noticeable but move extremely fast. Then, as they approach land, they slow down but get much taller. Once it hits shore, a tsunami's waves can look like a fast-rising flood or a wall of water. Sometimes the shore drains away first, like a low tide, before the full force of the tsunami slams onto land. Tsunamis are not just a single wave, but a series of waves that can flood the land, drain away, then reflood over a period of several hours. A large tsunami can flood low-lying coastal areas more than a mile inland.
Мы оперативно провели оповещение населения, провели эвакуацию на возвышенности. Люди там будут находиться до отмены команды «Цунами». Предварительно жилой фонд серьезно не пострадал. Есть незначительные нарушения, разрушились печные трубы, есть случаи разрушения электроснабжения.
Hey, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has downgraded the forecast from a tsunami warning to a tsunami advisory. The PTWC continues to monitor for more data to update its forecast and for an all clear that they may issue later on. A tsunami advisory means that the potential for strong currents or dangerous waves are expected or occurring for those in or near the water. There may be flooding of beach or harbor areas. Those who have evacuated may safely return home based on county assessments and directives.
All right, let's go straight across to our panel of experts to understand just what happened today and the impact that this tsunami has had. I'm joined on the show tonight by David Wrigley. He is a geospatial data scientist and meteorologist. He joins us live from Florida in the United States. Joining us from India, thank you, David. Joining us from here in India, we have GP Sharma, President of SkyMet Weather, and Ramesh Subramaniam, Global Director, Programs and Strategy, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Gentlemen, a warm welcome to all of you. David, if I could begin with you. Mercifully, not a lot of damage or fatalities have been reported today, but the magnitude of this earthquake is absolutely mind-boggling. 8.8 on the Richter scale. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this was one of the most powerful earthquakes to have ever been recorded in any part of the world. And, you know, the question that really arises is, how was this earthquake different from, let's say, the one that struck Japan in 2011? That was 9 on the Richter scale. And we know it caused massive damage, leaving 15,000 people dead, and of course the nuclear disaster at the Fukushima nuclear plant. Luckily, no such incident this time. But what do you think really was the difference?
Well, I think it's a combination of multiple different effects. For one, the Japanese one was closer to a very high population center, where the Russian one was off the coast of Kamchatka. There isn't as much population there. The other part of it is due to total water displacement. So the magnitude or the extent of that tsunami has to do with the initial water displacement from the initial earthquake. And then I believe the third one is simply how deep in the ocean it was. So I think it's a combination of how deep it was, how close it was to population centers, and how much water was physically displaced by that earthquake. The magnitude alone is not the entire story.
The magnitude alone is not the entire story. The depth is equally important. Before I take this to our Indian guests, David, very quickly, could you give us a sense of what the situation was like in Hawaii and the US West Coast today, where massive evacuation orders were in fact issued?
Right. It's better safe than sorry. It's the same thing when a hurricane is making landfalls, that you're essentially dealing with the same thing like a storm surge, because a tsunami is not one giant wave. It is a quite literal surge of water. And there are a lot of low-lying areas on the West Coast, and a lot of this is handled by the National Tsunami Warning Center, and there's two of them, one in Alaska and the Pacific one in Hawaii, which you just showed a video from. So I think what they're doing is preaching caution, because you never know. It's worse to issue a warning and have it turn out to be wrong than to not issue a warning and result in catastrophic damages. So I think that's what the mindset was to make sure that people, it ended up being a few feet, I think, when it reached California, which ultimately didn't end up being that big of a deal. But if that water had been 10, 12, 14 feet and they hadn't issued these warnings for people to evacuate, that would have been far worse.
All right. Let me now go across to GP Sharma. Mr. Sharma, like I said, mercifully, not much damage has been reported today. But fact of the matter is that millions of people around the world had a scare today on account of this tsunami. Uh, People were evacuated from large swaths of more than a dozen countries. 2 million people were asked to evacuate in Japan alone. And we're talking about Hawaii and the west coast in the United States. We're talking about the Philippines, Indonesia, China, New Zealand, Chile, Colombia, Peru, Mexico, Panama, Taiwan, not to mention Russia. Um, what do you think really happened today, sir, for us to be able to understand how some earthquakes and which then trigger tsunamis can be far more devastating than the others? Clearly, the magnitude was very, very scary. But why do you think that things were much better today than they were in 2011 in Japan?
Neha, see, it is very, very natural to take precautions and evacuate people when calamity of such magnitude that happens in the deep ocean as such. Okay, it is a very, very rare occurrence, and it is always uh, wise to take steps and take people to safe shelters, which has happened. Advisories they were issued by Japan also, and as you mentioned, by other countries to take people to safe shelter. 2 million people in Japan itself, and similar advisories were there for the Russians and even for the American coast as well. The thing is, you see, 8.8 is a huge, huge number. The only thing which saved us a little is this earthquake. It had a shallow depth. Pacific is a very, very huge ocean, both spread wise and the depth wise also. If it was deep enough, that the earthquake has happened even much, much deeper, even 50 kilometers and even beyond, deep in the Earth's surface. Okay. It had a depth of just about 19 kilometer, I believe. And therefore, you see, more the depth is there and the more it is farther away from the coast, it displaces that much amount of water. It was very close to the, though it happened over Kamchatka, that peninsula of Russian region, and it was the people were vacated from Severo, that Kursk as such. But then it was a narrow strip of land which had the proximity to the center of the earthquake. Had it been rather deeper in the sea, far, far away from the coast, and much more depth if it was there, it would have been possibly, I think, catastrophic as well. Though our predictions, they are still limited of these disasters, whether it is an earthquake or whether it is a tsunami. So it is quite natural when magnitude of 8.8 on the Richter scale, the earthquake takes place, the tsunami warning has to be issued. It has to be to play safe on that. Okay, so as I said, the only thing which saved us was it was a little not in the deep, very deep in the sea, and also not very deep as such. Had it been so, possibly the danger would have been much, 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 much higher. And obviously, the danger still remains on in case of such high magnitude of these earthquakes. The caution remains for almost about 24 hours. Okay. Yes,
Okay.
after that, though it has been already been downgraded by Japan, the caution has already been downgraded from the tsunami warning. It has come down to tsunami advisory also. But then it is better to keep the watch on at least for about 24 hours. The quake was at about 1:27 p.m. local time. It is always advisable to keep it a little longer because it is not one wave which gets triggered because of the earthquake. It is a series of them, one after the other, and they keep multiplying. They keep increasing the amplitude. So we have to exercise caution. So I feel that we keep it on. The watch should we keep it on for say another few hours or so before we are sure that we are obviously saved from the danger as such, from such a big calamity, such a big tsunami possibly could have taken place, but we are saved on account of that. Yes, yes, Neha.
Absolutely. As was said earlier, better to be safe than sorry. Precautions save lives. This could have been a massive catastrophe, really. And I think we should all be thanking our stars, really, that we have been saved. The entire, all those countries have been saved today. We're talking about more than a dozen countries, really. Let me go across to Ramesh Subramaniam now. Mr. Subramaniam, we're talking repeatedly about how today's earthquake and tsunami brought back chilling memories of the Fukushima disaster and the Japanese tsunami of 2011 that had left 15,000 people dead. But let's not forget that people in Asia, in the Indian subcontinent too, suffered in unspeakable ways during the tsunami of 2004, where, correct me if I'm wrong, but some 2.5 lakh lives were lost in India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and other parts of the region. Would you agree with the previous panelist that, apart from the magnitude of the earthquake, what's equally significant, if not more, is the depth? And at the same time, it is absolutely crucial that evacuation orders are issued and there is timely intervention by the authorities, because that can play a critical role in saving lives. Of course, the proximity of the epicenter of the earthquake to a coastline also is a major determining factor of the kind of damage that a tsunami can cause. Would you agree with that, sir?
Neha, the answer is absolutely yes. Thank you for having us on this segment, and also I appreciate the overview that you gave, because boosting continuously people's awareness is one of the most important things we have to do with disasters, and advocacy and bringing people into the picture is one thing that the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure does. On your question, Neha, you're absolutely right. Each disaster is very specific. It's got unique characteristics, as the previous panelists highlighted. Early warning systems, how advanced they are and how timely they are, matters a lot. Our assessment shows, Neha, that every dollar invested in early warning systems can save up to $14 in damages. You've used the term hair rising. You can call it mind numbing, paralyzing. These are the words that come to me. I used to live in Indonesia at the time of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, where 170,000 people were killed in Indonesia alone. And as you said, close to 250,000 people across the 15 countries. The ring of fire that you talked about also, if you look at the repeated occurrences of these events, the geological hazards that we are talking about here, they're pretty, while they probably may be somewhat infrequent in their occurrence as opposed to annual events, but their impact can be very, very large. Our analysis shows that the annual average losses from these sorts of what you may call as black swan events, Neha, can be up to about $14 billion. And this surpasses other disasters. Last year alone, in 2024, if you look at global loss and damages from these sorts of disasters, it was close to $250 billion. And the damages from storms or storm surges or ocean races alone accounted for about $175 billion. So, but at the same time, as you said, as others have said, the characteristics of each of these disasters, it matters a lot in terms of what kind of shocks they create, what kind of damages they impose, Neha.
All right, absolutely. You've made some very valid points, sir. Let me take this back to David. David, how seriously do we need to be on our guard for the next 24 hours? How dangerous do you think the aftershocks can be, even though in this case, despite the high magnitude, perhaps the depth at which the earthquake occurred proved to be a saving grace? But how serious do you think the aftershocks can be in such a situation? over a 24-hour period?
Well, as of about 20 minutes ago, there have been 152, I believe, 152 reported earthquakes in that area. So they're not out of the woods yet. Is that so? While the waves that are induced by these follow-on earthquakes, because the magnitudes are going to be most likely lower, the waves aren't going to be as high. But you can't go to sleep yet. You can't ignore what's going on here, particularly for those around the Kamchatka Peninsula and some of the Western Aleutian Islands, northern Japan, and things of that nature. They may not be as intense as the initial tsunami, but they're still going to be there. So if the water is receding, that means there's probably another surge coming. So I think there's still going to require discretion for people who are living in and around these coastal areas that were in yet.
All right. Well, these countries are not out of the woods yet. People need to be careful. Need to exercise caution. They need to be on their guard for the next 24 hours at the very least. Let me go back to GP Sharma. GP Sharma, Mr. Subramaniam earlier talked about how important early warning systems are. So this is my question to you, and I'll put this to him as well. Even though, correct me if I'm wrong, it is not scientifically possible to predict earthquakes. But how do early warning systems for tsunamis work? How important and effective are they? And do you believe countries around the world, including India, are investing enough in these? Have we learned our lessons from 2004 and 2011?
Neha, as far as prediction capabilities of for earthquake, etc., obviously we are a little poor. It's a gray area as of today also. Okay, but then maybe there is some hope now today only that satellite launch has been there. NISAR, that's NASA, ISRO together. It is mentioned that this will have the capability to read the changes that's in the Earth's surface, subtle changes even in the Earth's surface, which includes disasters like earthquakes, which also lead to tsunamis or so. But that it has to be still to be time tested. Okay, as of now, we hardly have any technology to predict accurately the magnitude of the earthquakes and the timings also. Now, you see such huge earthquakes. This comes in the category of very great. Okay, anything up to about 6.9 the Richter scale, that is moderate, and then up to about 7.9 it's great, and beyond 7.9, beyond 8 or so, that is a very great. So this is the very great. The periodicity as such of such high magnitude earthquakes, that is, I think it's beyond 50 years, as you said, but never such a disaster earthquake that is observed over this pocket, this area, for the last about more than 50 years. 1952 possibly was the time when something happened, but then periodicity is very large. It is more than 50 years, so it becomes all the more difficult to keep a track and become a little more wiser that as to when is it going to happen. In this case, 8.8 magnitude, as we said, that we need to be on guard just for the heck of it, for the reason that the Gaussian period is in any case more than 24 hours. This is for more than one reason. Such magnitude earthquakes, they always have the possibility of having aftershocks, and there have already been. Okay, they could be a little lesser in magnitude, the aftershocks, but then there could be a sequence of them, and they keep coming. They keep coming for days together also. But the more severe, obviously, that is, we have to watch out for the 24 to 36 hours at least before we completely lower our guard to be sure that nothing much is going to happen. But then it is always better to remain on the cautious side of such a disastrous events which can cause any big damage. We are lucky enough, we were fortunate enough that this possibly even after issuing the warning for tsunami, the waves were a little of a very, very low amplitude and didn't rise much. Therefore, the warning has been downgraded also. You see, basically the countries which were next to the Japan, like Japan Sea, the Taiwan region, it was lowered. The Basically it was as it is close proximity of the Bering Sea, and after that there's a whole lot of very vast ocean right across, going up to Hawaii Islands and further going round the earth. It comes back to US coast and Canada region. So therefore the waves possibly sometime could take that much time, and before we lift the caution, I think it is always advisable. And as I said, possibly to keep a track of such phenomena, earthquake or so. As of now, it is a little gray area, but hope lies in the satellite launch which we have today, which promises that it gives some indication, prior warning of some changes, even the subtle changes in the Earth's surface, and then so that we can possibly go a little closer to predicting such events. Yeah, that's it, Neha.
Well, you're absolutely right, sir. It's best to err on the side of caution. Everyone needs to be careful for at least another 24 to 36 hours. And I think we can all agree that we've been extraordinarily lucky today. Let me go back to Mr. Subramaniam. Mr. Subramaniam, you talked about the importance of investing in early warning systems. My question to you is, what were the biggest lessons of 2004 and 2011 in your view? And have we learned those lessons? Has India learned those lessons, for instance?
Thanks, Neha. Quite a few lessons have been learned, and certainly India has learned. If closer to home, if you look at the state of Odisha, for example, the devastating typhoon, the super typhoon in 1999, killed over 10,000 people. But if you look at how Odisha has improved its defense to these natural disasters, has been quite phenomenal in their investment in early warning, as well as boosting the disaster resilience. Now, some of the lessons that stand out, Neha, from 2004 as well as 2011, first is the need to continuously invest in infrastructure and make them more disaster resilient. A disaster resilient infrastructure is going to be very, very critical. Japan has been a leader in this, and through the coalition at CDRI, we are working very closely with them. Second is sustained capacity is going to be very, very critical. Some of the countries that you talked about on the Ring of Fire, they face significant challenges, and continuously they need capacity building. And also, when things like this happen, either immediately after disasters or in the process of relief, sound interagency coordination is very, very critical. And as we've seen today, just in within a matter of minutes, if not actually, it's not hours, it's a matter of minutes, how regional and global cooperation led to information sharing and rapid actions by countries concerned, including the developed countries, no surprise, but also many, many developing countries. Advocacy and bringing people, communities, increasing their awareness, things that you're doing, for example, things that many institutions are doing, is also a key lesson learned. And we need a blend of engineering solutions as well as nature-based solutions. This is one of the key lessons that came out of the 2004 and the 2011 disaster. And finally, we need continuous innovation in disaster risk financing. Given the debt sustainability concerns across the world, countries are still struggling, to invest in disaster resilient infrastructure. So more innovative solutions are needed, and we need more pre-event financing or pre-arranged financing, for example, to deal with catastrophic events. And insurance innovation is also needed there. So quite a few lessons that have been learned, and we believe the world is actually much better. Many countries are in a much, much better situation than they were in 2004.
Well, I would certainly want to believe that. And I don't know if we just got lucky today or we were better prepared. Maybe it was both. But David, as we wrap up this discussion, I'll give you the last word. If you could just explain to our viewers, why is it that some tsunamis are somewhat mild while others can be absolutely devastating? And what, according to you, are the lessons that we need to learn from today? Clearly, it's been a lucky day for the world, I would say.
Yeah, I would say, and I there's a simple rhyme we use when it comes to hurricanes. The category is not the whole story, and unfortunately, I don't have a simple rhyme for you with earthquakes and magnitudes and tsunamis. But it's the main thing is that the magnitude is not the entire story. It has to do, as we've talked about here, it has to do with the depth of the ocean or the depth of the earthquake and all of the water above it, the displacement of the water above it, and also proximity to land. The other thing I would remind people of that for the Tokyo earthquake is that that was a lot closer to land. So even though the tsunami was very devastating, a lot of the damage had been done from just the earthquake shakes. So all of these earthquakes are different, and there are a lot of variables that we simply can't control for. Now, the other part of it, as we've talked about extensively, are these early warning systems. And I think we've all done an amazing job. When I say we, I mean the global community have done an amazing job of trying to give as many people as much lead time as possible. And sometimes you get a matter of minutes. That's just how it is. So I think a lot of what we need to do is to really get this messaging out, like as you've been doing, as we're talking about here today, as to build. There's the earth part that we can't do, but there are things we can do on the human side to be better resilient, to have more tsunami barriers and things of that nature. So I think that we've learned a lot of lessons from the Japanese earthquake, and there are things we can control and things we can't control. And I think as things progress and we learn our lessons, the things we can control get better and better. But we obviously do need continuous funding to make sure that everything stays resilient.
Absolutely. And constant vigil. Really, I think that's what we need at the end of the day. On that note, I'd like to thank all my guests, David Riklicki, GP Sharma, Ramesh Subramaniam. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective and expertise with us on this very important story. I think we can all now heave a sigh of relief because what could have been a major catastrophe for the world has blown over. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank God. Yes, it was a massive earthquake. It could have caused a major catastrophe, but today we have all been saved. Luckily, the tsunamis that did strike many different parts of the world today, including Russia, Japan, and some parts of the United States, have not caused much damage. But as experts have been pointing out, people need to continue being on their guard for at least the next 24 to 36 hours.